Darius Slayton's injury concern did not create the Odell Beckham Jr. conversation. It exposed why that conversation never really disappeared. That is the part nobody is talking about. The Giants have names at wide receiver. They have bodies. They have hope. They have Malik Nabers. They have Jaxson Dart as the current starting quarterback. But hope is not the same thing as certainty. And in the John Harbaugh era, uncertainty gets challenged fast. This is not an OBJ signing report. This is not nostalgia dressed up as news. This is a roster stress test. Because if Slayton's health becomes even a short-term concern, the Giants have to ask the uncomfortable question. Do they trust this receiver room enough to protect Dart's development? Or does a familiar name stay on the emergency board? That is where this gets serious. Let's be honest about where things stand. The holes are clear, and this is where it gets real. The Giants' wide receiver room has a certainty problem, not a numbers problem, a certainty problem. Having receivers on the roster does not mean having dependable answers. Having speed does not mean having trust. Having upside does not mean having timing with Dart when the game gets tight. Darius Slayton matters because veteran stability matters. If his injury concern lingers, the Giants are not just losing a name from the depth chart. They are losing one of the pieces that helps make a receiver room feel organized. That matters for Dart. A young starting quarterback cannot live on mystery routes, inconsistent separation, and weekly experiments. He needs structure. He needs reliable targets. He needs a staff that is not scrambling every time one veteran gets banged up. The Giants also have a trust problem behind the obvious names. Malik Nabers is the headline talent. But a receiver room is not built on one player. Defenses adjust. Coverage rotates. Injuries happen. Camp surprises happen. And when the second layer of the room gets tested, the whole offense can start to wobble. That is why Beckham's name still matters. Not because the Giants should chase a reunion for feelings. Not because fans want an old highlight reel. Because when the room looks uncertain, every available option becomes part of the conversation. And the Giants cannot afford to build around Dart with sentimental decisions or blind faith. They need proof. They need reliability. They need a real answer before the season pressure starts. And that brings us to the Slayton concern that put OBJ back in focus. The main story is simple. The Giants' wide receiver room is under scrutiny after Darius Slayton's injury concern, and Odell Beckham Jr. remains an option in the conversation. Read that carefully. Not signed. Not guaranteed. Not the plan. An option. That overlay matters because this is where fans get reckless. Half the fan base hears OBJ and immediately wants the reunion. The other half hears OBJ and wants the door locked forever. I think both reactions miss the real point. The question is not whether Beckham should be brought back for nostalgia. The question is whether the Giants have enough certainty at receiver without keeping him in mind. That is a totally different conversation, and it has real weight. If Slayton is fine, the pressure eases. If the room looks stable, the OBJ debate cools. If younger receivers step up, the Giants can stay patient. But if Slayton's concern lingers, and the room looks thin, and Dart is trying to build rhythm with targets who have not proven enough yet, then Schoen has a responsibility to keep the receiver board alive. That is not panic. That is adult roster management. Here is my position. The Giants should not sign Beckham just because his name still hits emotionally. But they also should not pretend his name is irrelevant if the receiver room starts cracking. OBJ is not the plan. OBJ is the question the Giants have to answer if the plan starts leaking. That is the cleanest way to frame it. Because this offense is now about Dart. Everything has to be filtered through him. Does this help Dart? Does this give Dart a cleaner answer? Does this make the offense more stable? Does this make the room more trustworthy? If the answer is no, move on. If the answer becomes yes, then the conversation is not silly anymore. Big Blue cannot be embarrassed by considering every possible way to support its starting quarterback. The embarrassment would be ignoring a weakness because the name attached to the solution makes people argue. And when you see how the bottom of the roster is being evaluated, this all starts to click. The receiver question is about certainty. The undrafted free agent story is about the same thing from the opposite end of the roster. A Giants undrafted free agent was tabbed as the most likely to make the 53-man roster, despite a crowded position group. That number matters because the 53-man roster is where hope either becomes real or gets cut. It means a player is not just a camp body. It means he could force the Giants to make a serious decision. And this is where it connects to the bigger picture. Harbaugh's Giants are not supposed to be a team where reputation settles everything. They are supposed to be a team where usefulness wins. That matters for OBJ. It matters for Slayton. It matters for every receiver fighting for a role. If an undrafted player can push through a crowded room, then the Giants are telling the entire building that every spot is being tested, not handed out, not protected by name value. Tested. That is exactly how a serious roster should operate. And this is why the Beckham conversation cannot be emotional. If OBJ is ever brought back into the discussion, he has to be judged the same way as everybody else. Can he help now? Can he fit the role? Can he support Dart? Can he give the offense something it does not already have? If the answer is yes, then the Giants should explore it. If the answer is no, the name does not matter. That is the new standard. And I love that standard. Because for too long, the Giants have been caught between what players used to be and what the roster actually needed. That middle ground kills teams. Harbaugh cannot allow it. Schoen cannot allow it. Dart cannot afford it. And when you combine that roster pressure theme with the message sent to Deonte Banks, the pattern gets even clearer. The Deonte Banks story proves this is bigger than one position. The Giants declined Deonte Banks' option after drafting Colton Hood, and the message about the secondary is clear. Nothing is automatic. That matters because Banks was not treated like someone protected by draft status alone. The Giants added competition, then let the message speak. That is not random. That is a shift in philosophy. And when you connect the dots, it applies directly to the receiver room. If Banks can feel pressure after the draft, then no receiver room should feel safe just because the depth chart looks crowded on paper. Crowded does not mean settled. Crowded does not mean reliable. Crowded does not mean Dart has enough answers. This is the part nobody is talking about. The Giants are replacing assumptions with pressure. That is the Harbaugh fingerprint. No more comfort. No more automatic trust. No more pretending a room is fine because the names look familiar. If the secondary has to prove itself, the wide receiver room has to prove itself too. That is why Slayton's injury concern matters so much. It might be small. It might pass quickly. But even a small concern can reveal a bigger truth. The Giants still need to know exactly how much they trust the weapons around Dart. And if they do not trust them enough, Beckham remains part of the emergency conversation. Not because he is the past, because the present may still need another answer. Hot take. The Giants should keep Odell Beckham Jr. on the emergency list, but they should not call him unless Slayton's concern becomes a real roster problem. And I am not backing down from that. My prediction is specific. The Giants will explore at least 2 veteran receiver options before they fully close the door on this room. That matters because smart teams do not wait until desperation becomes obvious. If I am wrong, I will come back to this video and own it. But I do not think I am wrong. Here is the divisive part. If Slayton is healthy and the young receivers look ready, I do not want OBJ signed just for a reunion. I do not care how emotional it feels. But if the room looks shaky and Dart needs a trustworthy target, Schoen has to pick up the phone. That does not mean begging. That does not mean overpaying. That means doing the job. Giants fans need to stop asking whether OBJ makes them feel nostalgic. Ask the harder question. Would he make Dart's life easier right now? That is the only question that matters. Big Blue is not building around memories anymore. Big Blue is building around proof. That is the identity statement. Slayton's injury concern matters. Beckham's name matters. The undrafted roster push matters. The Deonte Banks message matters. This is all one story. The Giants are testing certainty everywhere. Receiver room, bottom of the roster, secondary, quarterback support. So Giants fans, pick a side. If Slayton's concern lingers, should the G-men call Odell Beckham Jr., or should that door stay closed forever? And be honest, are you judging OBJ by the memories, or by what Dart needs right now? If you are riding with the New York Football Giants through every rumor, roster battle, injury concern, and Harbaugh decision, you know where that subscribe button is. This is the reset this franchise needed. Go Big Blue.